Okay, thank you everyone for attending. We are going to start our elections forum. I'd like to introduce our chair of the Elections Procedures Committee, Honorable Michael Snyder. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Good afternoon, everyone. As Tracy has indicated, I'm Mike Snyder. I'm the immediate past chancellor of the association, and this year I have the pleasure of chairing the Elections Committee. Today we have a large number of people that will be speaking because we are fortunate this year to have contested races for Vice Chancellor, for the Board of Governors, and also for the Young Lawyers Division Executive Committee. I will shortly, in a moment, then introduce Riley Ross, who will be the moderator of today's forum. The forum today is co-sponsored by the Diversity in the Profession Committee. And I did, before Riley gets on, just want to advise you that there are questions that have been prepared for Riley's use by the members of the Diversity in the Profession Committee. Riley will be able to use those questions as he sees fit. Not every individual will be asked the same question. In addition, if individuals wish to submit questions, they may do so through the chat function. Very briefly, the first thing that will happen will be that each of the candidates will be introduced for each particular role. Those who will be serving in uncontested positions will first be able to briefly introduce themselves and state their position. Following that, there will be the candidates for the Board of Governors will each have a chance to speak very briefly with introductions, and there will then be a 15-minute question and answer session for them. At the end of that session, then the candidates for Vice Chancellor will again have an opportunity to introduce themselves and to be able to indicate why they are running and their position. And then there will be a 20-minute question and answer period for them. Following the Vice Chancellor question and answer session, the Young Lawyers Division executive candidates will each be given 2 minutes to introduce themselves, to state why they are running for the YLD Executive Committee, and to name one tangible way that the Young Lawyers Division can work to increase the presence of diverse young lawyers in the Bar Association as both members and leaders. Those who are not going to be in a speaking position will have their cameras off for the particular periods of time when they are not expected to speak, as will they have their microphones off. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce this year's board chair, Riley Ross. Riley, will you please continue from here? Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. I'll be happy to, and I look forward to you coming back at the end of this presentation. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to get us moving along. So I'd like to ask that the unopposed officer candidates turn their cameras on and one by one introduce yourselves to our audience, stating your name and your position, and we'll start with Michael Stackow.
Thanks, Riley. Hello, everyone. My name is Mike Stackow. I'm a counsel in the Institutional Response Group at Coase and O'Connor, and I'm running for secretary.
Thank you. And I will note that Diane Pennies-Edelman is not able to be with us this afternoon, but she is running unopposed for assistant secretary. Matthew, you're up next.
Thanks, Riley. Hi, everyone. My name is Matt Olish, and I'm running for treasurer. This would be my second year as treasurer for the association.
Thank you, Matthew. And last but not least, Dino.
Thanks, Riley, and thanks, Judge Snyder. Great to be here. My name is Dino Privatera, and I'm running for assistant treasurer.
Thank you all for being here and for introducing yourself to our audience. We will now move on to the contested race for the Board of Governors. We have 7 candidates that are going to be going for 5 positions that are open. We're going to have an opportunity to meet each one. They will introduce themselves and state why they're running for the Board of Governors. And then we will get into a question and answer session that runs about 15 minutes. For the initial, each person will have a minute and a half to introduce themselves. And for the question and answer session, they will only have 30 seconds to answer the questions that I'll pose to them. So we'll start off with William Braveman. William.
Thank you, Riley. It's exciting to be considered amongst this distinguished field. To give you an idea of who I am, I was born and raised in Philly, went to Temple Law, lived with my wife and kids in the Bella Vista area. After I served as a law clerk, I started with the City of Philadelphia's Law Department as an assistant and as a deputy city solicitor for 12 years in 3 different units. First the child welfare, then the mental health unit, and then the labor and employment unit. After that, I went to a small firm. I did union and employee side matters and was their employment law chair for 2 years. And now I have a private practice, 75% of which is devoted to labor and employment with a focus on discrimination. I'm presently designated to represent about 2,400 unionized and organized City of Philadelphia employees and supervisors. And 4 days a month at Friends Hospital, I serve as defense counsel in mental health civil commitment matters. My website details my volunteer work if you want to look at it. I'm an FJD Pro Bono Award recipient every year of my private practice. And with my family, every MLK Day, I do volunteer. With regard to my Bar Association activities, I've been a committee member. I'm now a member of the LRIS panel and the committee. And I think I'd be a useful addition to the board. I think I have a unique voice and perspective in terms of having a social services background and an employment law background. And I have some interesting ideas on partnering with discrimination agencies, city officials, and firms to stimulate diversity and combat racism. Thank you.
Thank you. Ernest Holzheimer is up next.
Thank you very much, Riley, and thank you everyone for joining us today. As Riley mentioned, my name is Ernie Holzheimer. I'm a partner at Montgomery McCracken, Walker & Rhodes in the Corporate and Securities Practice Group, where my practice is largely M&A focused, and I also work with emerging companies doing venture capital and outside general counsel work. I'm also a member of the firm's diversity committee and chair of the firm's employee resource group for individuals with disabilities. I have a vast amount of experience with the Bar Association. As a first generation attorney, I joined the Bar Association very early in my career while in law school and was involved in both the YLD and the business law section, both in law school and after graduation. I currently serve as chair of the business law section. And as chair of the business law section, I am currently an appointed member of the Board of Governors. So I'm very familiar with the work that has been done on the Board of Governors throughout the past year. Hopefully going to be able to continue that work and all of the work of those who have come before me in a 3-year term, if so elected. I also serve in leadership of various other organizations, including the Philadelphia Diversity Law Group Alumni Association, of which I was a founder and currently serve as co-president. I serve as vice chair of the Individuals with Disabilities Involvement Subcommittee of the Diversity Committee of the ABA Business Law Section, and I serve on the Executive Advisory Board of Special Olympics Philadelphia. I am a Pennsylvania Philadelphia chapter. I'm very excited to be here today, and thank you all for joining.
Thank you. Next up, Michael Huff.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Michael Huff, and I am excited and honored to be running for the Board of Governors of the oldest bar association in the United States. I also want to thank the diversity in the profession community for the opportunity to speak to you. I am 53 years old. I've been married to my wife, Shirley, for over 20 years. We have 3 amazing children. My daughter, Madeline, who is a sophomore in college, and twin sons who are seniors in high school. I have been practicing criminal defense for the past 27 years, both in state and federal court in Pennsylvania and New Jersey. I've tried numerous jury trials in state, federal court in Philadelphia and around the surrounding counties. I knew in law school that I wanted to be an advocate for the powerless and the disenfranchised. I also knew that I wanted to be self-employed. And fortunately, for the last 27 years, I've been able to accomplish both of those goals. I received the Award of Courage from the Association of Criminal Defense Attorneys in New Jersey for my participation in a high-profile case in Camden. I'm really looking forward to running for this position. I've been involved in community activism and politics for about the past 5 years. I want to bring my energy and enthusiasm for community service and political activism to the Board of Governors. I also want to be a strong voice for the criminal justice practitioner, especially in matters of criminal justice reform, mass incarceration. And this is my first time running for any type of leadership position in the board, but I believe that I'll be a good voice for the board, a good representation, a good representative, in the community for the Philadelphia Bar Association, and I ask for your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Stephen Kulp.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Stephen Kulp. I use he, him pronouns, and it's a pleasure to be here with everyone who's attending today's forum, but also with these highly qualified candidates. I am running for the Board of Governors for the Philadelphia Bar Association for several reasons, but the biggest and most important reason is because of a 2014 resolution and action plan that our past Board of Governors did pass, which spoke to how diversity and inclusion was going to be an integral part of the core values of the Philadelphia Bar Association. I believe strongly in what that board proposed and what they adopted. As an attorney who does a lot of civil litigation on the defense side, I don't often get to be the type of advocate that I want to be for folks at the intersection of whether it's race, age, ethnicity, disability, et cetera. I currently chair the Philadelphia LGBTQ Bar Association. I was honored to be the first Asian American and person of color to be elected by my colleagues in that position. And I've committed to my members to provide timely resources, whether it's CLEs to help fulfill their CLE requirements, networking events, job opportunities, et cetera. I am also part of national organizations, the National LGBTQ Bar Association, NAPABA, as well as a member of APABA PA. I bring together a lot of different networks easily because I do believe that we're stronger together. And as a member of the Board of Governors, I think that that voice is important to help bridge those connections and be a voice that says this works for all of us and here's why. I would be humbled to receive your support, and I'm so thankful to DIPC for giving us all the time.
Thank you. Next up is Bethany Nicotenko.
Thank you, Riley. Good afternoon. My name is Bethany Nicotenko, and I'm a partner with Feldman Shepherd. I am currently serving a one-year appointed term to the Board of Governors. I am also currently the vice chair of the Young Lawyers Division. I have also served this year on the Board Observer Program Committee for the Bar Foundation, and I also was on the Bench Bar Committee this year. I have also served for many years as a mentor through the Bar Association. I would like the opportunity to continue serving both the legal community and broader Philadelphia community through service to the Bar Association. Through the Board of Governors, I would like to continue developing programs to foster legal education, professional development, and wellness. I would like to focus these efforts on new attorneys entering the profession and women who encounter hurdles staying and excelling in the profession. I think my colleagues in the Young Lawyers Division would tell you that I'm a doer and that I do what I say that I'm going to do, and I can always be relied upon to do the hard work that's necessary. You need someone who's a networker, who's a communicator, who's a builder, and I am that person. So I ask, just like the Young Lawyers Division did, that they entrusted their support in me, and just like Chancellor McKenna did when she appointed me to this position, that you give me your support as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Nan Sato.
Hi, everybody. My name is Nan Sato. I am a lawyer with the firm Fisher Phillips, specializing in international employment law. I'm half Japanese, half Chinese, grew up in both countries, also lived in Spain for a little bit during college. I've been in Philadelphia for 15 years and been practicing in different fields for about 10 years. So as somebody who has lived and worked abroad a lot, I believe I can bring a very unique perspective to the Board of Governors and help raise the international profile of the Philadelphia Bar Association. If elected, I have a 3-point plan. One is to raise awareness of the Bar Association among business communities and the minority groups. I'm personally involved in several of these groups on the board level. And 2 is to increase the membership and participation of lawyers from diverse backgrounds. Growing up in the international school system with people from different countries and different backgrounds, I am a beneficiary of diversity and a true believer that diversity builds strong organizations. And lastly, to enhance the name recognition of the Bar Association internationally by building collaborative relationships with international bar associations through the professional and personal network I've built throughout the years. So I look forward to meeting many of you in the coming months and happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, and my apologies for mispronouncing your last name. Next is Arlie Smith-Pearson.
Hi, my name is Arlie Smith-Pearson. I use she, her pronouns. I am a staff attorney at Philadelphia Legal Assistance, and I advocate for victims of domestic violence and sexual abuse in their family law matters. I also teach a full-time clinic at Drexel University, the Civil Litigation Field Clinic. I have a long list of proven leadership at the Bar Association. I have served for the last 2 years as the public interest representative on the Board of Governors through an appointed position. I was also the 2020 chair of the public interest section and has also served as the vice chair of that section and an executive committee member and as a liaison. I was also active in the YLD, elected as an executive committee member and serving as the financial secretary. Something that I'm most proud of in my bar leadership career is that I co-founded the Public Interest Associates Committee, which has been going for several years, providing a complement to the Delivery of Legal Services Committee for the younger non-management public interest practitioners. And through the work that I've done in that committee, I've really been excited about the programming that we've been able to put on. As if I were elected to the Board of Governors, I hope that I would be able to continue my goals of advancing access to justice. In my day job, I advocate for individuals, and it's through my Bar Association work that I hope to advocate for our community and continue to do that. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you all. Now that you've met the candidates, let's ask get some information from them. Again, these questions are going to be, the candidates are going to be given 30 seconds to answer them, so not a lot of time. And you may not all be asked the same question, but for this first question, I am going to ask all of you to answer it. The question is, what have you done to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion prior to being a candidate for the Board of Governors? And we will go in order of the introductions and start with William.
So I'm a discrimination attorney. Obviously, diversity and discrimination run hand in hand. That's what I do. I file discrimination cases in the agencies. I file them in the states and the federal courts. And it's an important part of what I'd like to do continuing to move forward. Thank you.
Ernie.
Thank you, Riley. As mentioned in my introduction, several of my roles, I serve as in the leadership of various organizations and associations that support diversity in the profession. One thing that I'm very proud of is the Business Law Section's Boots on the Ground initiative, which for the past several years, as a member of the executive committee, we've supported students in the Philadelphia public schools and through Philadelphia Futures to encourage them to consider legal careers and to facilitate legal field trips to the National Constitution Center and other initiatives.
Michael.
Yes, hello. I would say most recently, what I've done is to support our judges who just ran for office this past November the 2nd. And that includes Judge Tamika Lane, Judge Lori Dumas, also Municipal Court and Court of Common Pleas Judge Nick Kamal, Mark Moore, Greg Yorgi Gertie, knocking on doors for these individuals, attending fundraisers for these individuals, help getting out the vote for these individuals. I think it's incredibly important, not only in the profession that it be diverse, but also on the bench, if not more important on the bench. And so I've done a lot of work supporting these judicial candidates and making sure that we have diversity, not only in the profession, but also on the bench. Thank you.
Stephen.
I think most importantly, the work I do as chair for the past year has been completely focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion within the LGBTQ community. I think that that's an important intersection that is maybe overlooked. We have issues within our own community that need to be addressed. Beyond that, I am passionate, a passionate advocate for creating real meaningful pathways for folks, diverse folks, to elevate themselves into positions of power in leadership positions, whether it's on my board, whether it is a federal bench, whether it is another judicial recommendation or nomination. I also mentor diverse students, including—
Thank you, Stephen. I'm sorry to cut you off. Bethany.
In my previous role as a partner with McLaughlin and Lauricella, I was involved in interviewing and hiring attorneys. Interviewing and hiring underrepresented attorney candidates was one of my top priorities. I hired attorneys of various races, ethnicities, and sexual orientations. I also have made a concerted effort to get underrepresented attorneys interested in plaintiffs' work. I have also counseled a number of underrepresented attorneys on navigating the legal profession. Thank you.
Nan.
Yeah, so as part of my work, I consult clients almost on a daily level or a daily basis on diversity and inclusion, how to implement D&I policies and provide those kind of training sessions to their employees. And also personally, I'm involved as a member of the D&I committee of the Chester County Economic Development Council. We audit their current practice, and we're putting together a plan to both increase diversity and inclusion internally and externally for minority business owners.
Arlie.
As chair of the public interest section, I had the executive committee commit to completing the diversity action checklist that the Board of Governors does. So I integrated that to the section when I was in charge. I have also planned several programs around DEI, including the Associates Committee. We brought in a facilitator to have a training on how our public interest organizations can ensure that our hiring practices reflect the goals of racial equity, diversity, and inclusion.
Thank you all. This next question is going to be for Michael, Ernest, and William in that order. What is a tangible way the Philadelphia Bar Association can work with and contribute to larger DEI initiatives with members? We'll start with you, Michael.
No, I think it's important, that we educate the public, that you might even want to start in high schools, in Philadelphia and other places, and, bring in those educational ideas and introduce the legal profession to kids who may not have relatives who are lawyers or, family members who are lawyers, and, really promote the profession among people who are severely underrepresented. And I think the way to start that is to get into the high schools and let the kids know that this is something, that they can do and something that they can accomplish. I think that would go a long way in opening up diversity.
Thank you, Michael.
In the profession. Thank you.
Thanks. Ernest.
Thank you, Riley. I agree with Michael. I think the getting engaged with the pipeline of students early in their education is extremely important, and engaging our membership to get out and in front of these students would be extremely beneficial. I also think that we can encourage our membership to encourage their firms and legal organizations to participate in initiatives like Philadelphia Diversity Law Group and join as members to encourage law students to encourage those firms and organizations to hire law students of diverse backgrounds.
William.
Totally agree with Ernest's last point. I also think there needs to be a specific task force. I'm a NELA attorney. One thing that makes our heads explode is a friend of mine did a study. 2% of the PHRC cases result in a finding of discrimination. And that's just not right. And we need to find out why. And I have a theory that it's the mediation process being underused. I think it needs to be more robust. I think that they need to get creative. I think an anonymous hotline with an investigatory arm needs to be implemented in the EEOC, the PHRC, the Philadelphia Commission. And I do think we have members of this bar association, of which I am one. I used to be a PCHR attorney, but we have
Thank
other—
you, William. Thank you. Sorry to cut you off.
No problem.
This next question is for Arlie, Nan, Stephen, and Bethany in that order. How do you engage with colleagues when there is a particularly polarizing topic being discussed? Arlie.
I like to listen to the other side. However, I think that is important that as someone who I'm a younger woman, and I think it's important that I be heard. And as a member of the Board of Governors, I think that I bring an important perspective that I would make sure can be listened to in a respectful way. But I think that conversation, you need to make sure that your point is getting put across.
Nan.
Yes, I like to engage with that person over a beer, ideally, to kind of make the atmosphere a little more comfortable, a little more casual and open. And I like to ask open-ended questions. I think the most important thing is to engage with the other side to make sure that everybody can discuss the topic in a very low pressure and open setting to discuss their true feelings and hopefully work towards a solution together.
Stephen.
I think I would approach it both with compassion, but also grace. I think as leaders, that's something that is extremely important when you're engaging with anyone, especially if they're another member or a colleague of yours on a polarizing issue. I do want to echo what Arlie said, and that being for far too long, my voice wasn't being heard. So there is a point in time where you do say something, you bring that voice to the table, but I think that can be done gracefully.
Bethany.
You have to know, engage, and respect another person before you can have a difficult discussion with them. Through the Jewish American Committee, I've been involved in a Jewish-Muslim dialogue group. And through that group, I have learned to develop meaningful personal relationships and mutual respect before having difficult discussions. Before we try to talk with other people about polarizing issues, we should try to first find common ground and mutual understanding on less challenging issues.
This next question is going to be for Ernest, Michael, Arlie, and Nan in that order. According to recent labor statistics, we are in the midst of the Great Resignation. Employees are leaving jobs in record numbers, and the legal industry is no exception. Considering burnout in attorneys and how burnout can impact job satisfaction, how can the Bar Association support attorney wellness? Ernest.
I think the Bar Association has done a good job in starting initiatives, yoga programs. We had the YLD Run Club, programs that get attorneys away from their desk and, out and engaged and, engaging in mindfulness initiatives and efforts outside of their office space. I think the association has done a good job and will continue to do a good job in such initiatives.
Michael.
Thank you. Yes, ours is an incredibly stressful profession. Yeah, I think the Bar Association could do and does a lot to help support other attorneys, especially in areas of substance abuse. It's no secret that many attorneys do suffer from substance abuse issues, whether it's drugs or alcohol, because again, this is a very stressful profession. And, I think we need to empathize with each other, support each other, and to make sure, there's no judgment on these things, and that there are programs in place to make sure that if someone is not, doing well mental health wise, that we're able to support and help each other. Thank you.
Arlie.
Thank you. I actually organized a panel on burnout in the public interest section to have longtime staff attorneys come and talk about what they did when they were experiencing that. And so I think having panels like that, programs like that are helpful, but also having the Bar Association be a voice about transparency and having candid conversations about what we expect as lawyers, and maybe changing some of the norms about pushing for how many hours and how many cases should be expected out of associates and partners.
Nan.
Yes, I think two things. One is to discuss openly. I think Arlie is doing a great job organizing something like that, and I think the Bar Association could do more of building these forums where people can come and exchange honest opinions and really discuss their feelings without judgment. And two is to, I think it's in a lot of people things because of isolation. The pressure tends to build up during isolation. So build more opportunities for people to interact with each other, not only on work-related issues, but other social and fun issues maybe.
Thank you. This is going to be the final question, and it's going to be for Bethany, Stephen, and William. The Board of Governors often issues resolutions on topics in local and national news. Over the past year, the Board of Governors has considered and issued resolutions on a state bill banning transgender women and girls from participating in school sports, compulsory arbitration in COVID-19 related personal injury claims, and amendments to the certified legal intern process. Should the board continue to issue these types of resolutions in these types of issues? Bethany.
Yes, the Bar Association has to have a platform to make policy. Resolutions are the collective voice of the Bar Association. The resolution process gives the members a direct role in formulating that collective voice. Resolutions are a call to action. This often includes communicating with elected officials, the media, and the public. It might be an arduous process, but it's the best way to ensure that the policy of the Bar Association represents the collective voice of its members.
Stephen.
Absolutely. I think as the Philadelphia Bar Association being, comprising so many different members and so many different affinity bar associations, it is so important that this type of resolution practice that goes out to all of the members continues. It keeps faith in the organization. It tells people that they are supported on hard topics that the Philadelphia Bar Association should be making a stance on. And so, yes, I absolutely believe that.
William.
100% concur. We need to make these policy pronunciations. Philadelphia is a leader as a city in terms of being liberal, being open-minded, being fair. And if we as a bar association, in the course of our collection as individuals and our experience, promulgate policies, the media will pick those policies up. The law firms will listen. The government agencies will listen. They will all begin to change. It's a real kind of center hub from which we can spread our web out and impact very real change.
Thank you. And I did say that was the last question, but I guess I lied because we actually have a minute left. So here's what I want to do. I want to have each of you tell me in 5 words or less a priority for the Bar Association that you would push if you were elected to the Board of Governors. In 5 words or less, just any priority. We're going to go from the bottom up this time. We're going to start with Arlie.
Modernizing admission to practice rules.
Nan.
International collaboration and cooperation.
Bethany.
Professional development, new attorneys and women.
Stephen.
Strengthening relationships with the affinity bar associations and the diverse committees within the Philadelphia Bar Association.
Michael.
Being a strong voice for the lawyers in Philadelphia and helping to set policy that promote justice and equality.
Ernest.
Engaging law students and young lawyers and including individuals with disabilities in the definition of diversity, equity, and inclusion.
William.
Task forces to fight discrimination.
I want to thank you all for being here and providing us with insights on your candidacy. Thank you all, and you are free to turn off your cameras. Next, we're going to move to the candidates for the position of Vice Chancellor. I will ask Jennifer Coatsworth and Kathy Jafari to turn on their cameras. What we're going to do here is that we're going to give each candidate a 5 minutes to do an opening. And then after that, we will engage in a 20-minute question and answer session. And for those, each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer the questions that will be posed to them. So we're going to start and go in alphabetical order. So Ms. Coatsworth, you are first.
Thank you, Riley. Good afternoon. I want to thank the DIPC and the Bar Association for taking the time to conduct this forum and the candidates about making our respective thoughts and plans pertaining to DEI initiatives. DEI is such a foundational principle of our association that it's important to devote an entire forum to addressing issues on that topic. Please allow me to introduce myself. My name is Jennifer Coatsworth, and I have the privilege of running for the position of Vice Chancellor of our Bar Association. I'm a partner at Margolis Edelstein, where I've worked for nearly 18 years. I'm a lifelong Philadelphian, and I currently live outside the city in South Jersey with my husband and 2 young sons and our dog. I grew up in a family where diversity was a core value taught to me at a young age. As the daughter of a gay father, I learned quickly the ugliness of bigotry and prejudice. The pain I endured as a child from closed-minded neighbors and friends stayed with me into adulthood. I first became involved in the Bar Association over 15 years ago in order to participate in activities that I thought would contribute to the greater good of the profession and to our community at large. In particular, I was exploring ways that I could have an impact on advancing diversity initiatives to eliminate bias and prejudice within our legal community and beyond. I started my bar service in the YLD Executive Committee for approximately 5 years, winning terms as Secretary and Vice Chair. When my 3-year term was over, I continued as the liaison for the Philadelphia Association of Defense Counsel and the Foundation Benefit. I then ran for and won a 3-year term on the Board of Governors. And following that term in 2015, I was appointed by Chancellor Al Dandridge to serve at the cabinet level position of parliamentarian. I've served in the cabinet steadily since 2015, including 3 years as assistant secretary, 2 years as secretary, and I'm currently serving as assistant treasurer. Over the course of my bar career, I've also co-chaired several committees, including the Women in the Profession, Bench Bar, and the Military and Veterans Affairs Committee. And I'm currently chairing the Bar-wide Mentorship and co-chairing the Bar-wide Mentorship and Professional Development Initiative. I've also served on important committees of the association, such as the Elections Committee and the Budget and Finance Committees. In addition to my service within our Bar Association, I have also been very active with the State Bar. In particular, I currently serve as the Zone 1 Governor, representing Philadelphia lawyers and our Bar Association in the governing body of the PBA. I'm also currently serving as the co-chair of the Women in the Profession Commission. I'm also a recent past chair of the Civil Litigation section, having served in every officer position of that section. Additionally, I'm an active member of a number of other committees of the PBA, including the Civil and Equal Rights Committee, the Minority Bar Committee, the Bylaws Committee, and the Judicial Evaluation Commission. Through my leadership roles in various committees and sections of the PBA, I have forged strong relationships with leaders across the state that have always served to the benefit of our association and our members. In particular, I believe DEI can only move forward if we have concrete change, and I have worked on a number of initiatives to do just that. I am most proud of our efforts to enact Rule of Professional Conduct 8.4G, which makes it an ethical violation to harass or discriminate on the basis of a number of protected classes. These efforts began in 2016, when I was lucky enough to serve with my dear friend, Amber Racine of blessed memory, as the WIP co-chair. The issue was raised to us and we sprung into action, rallying an influx of diverse members to the Professional Responsibility Committee of this association so that the committee could agree to co-sponsor the resolution with the women in the profession. Many of you were probably in the room that day on the 11th floor of the association. We had a frank and open discussion about why the rule was so very necessary and ultimately voted overwhelmingly to support the resolution. Amber and I then presented that resolution to our Board of Governors and it passed nearly unanimously. Simultaneously, I was working with the Women in the Profession and Legal Ethics and Professional Responsibility Committees of the PBA to bring a similar resolution before the PBA House of Delegates. That resolution received similar overwhelming support and became PBA policy. Due to those efforts of the bar associations from across the state, ultimately in June of 2020, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court passed Rule 8.4G. Since then, there have been several legal challenges, but ultimately it will be implemented. Diversity is an investment. I'm committed to making that investment, and I have some concrete ideas about how we can move forward to further this core value of our association. And I look forward to sharing those ideas with you today.
Thank you, Ms. Jafari.
Thank you so much, Riley. Can you hear me okay? Okay, great. So thank you so much to the Diversity in the Profession Committee for hosting this forum today. It's apropos having received the Chancellor's Diversity Advisory Panel survey today. It felt great to fill out that survey and make our voices heard on the topic of DEI. But there is more to be done than just have voices heard. We need to have true change in the world of DE&I. As mentioned, my name is Kathy Jafari, and I am running for Vice Chancellor of the Philadelphia Bar Association because I have the experience, vision, and passion to devote myself in service to an organization from which I've gained so much. My parents were immigrants coming from the Middle East, traveling to the US in the 50s and 60s. They sacrificed their homes and their families to be in a country where they believed their daughters could be treated equally and fairly and have a better life. As immigrants, my parents believed that being in the US was a privilege, and with that privilege came a duty. And that duty was service to one's community and society. I honestly don't remember a day when we were not asked, what have we done to help somebody else? And so that leads me to why I am running for this position. My community is Philadelphia. I have lived and worked in Philadelphia my entire life with a short stint to DC for law school, but as we all know, we always come home to Philly. The Bar Association has been ingrained in my DNA. It's time for me to give back by applying my skills to you, its members. I will never forget when I was asked to present at the naturalization ceremony while I was chair of the Board of Governors. I worked on my speech with my mother. And you know what she did? She actually went to the other room into her special box and she pulled out the brochure from her naturalization ceremony from 40 years earlier. And there it was, the ad for LRIS and the Philadelphia Bar Association. And just as it brings tears to my eyes now, it brought tears to both of our eyes then. I share all of this because I could talk to you about my skill set and all of my experiences from the wonderful law firms I have had the privilege of being at: Saul Ewing, Ballard Spahr, and now Cozen O'Connor, to the great positions I've held on the many committees of the Bar Association, including leadership roles of chair of the Board of Governors and chair of the business law section, and all of the nonprofits in this city. And I can tell you why that would make me a great and why that makes me the best candidate to vice chancellor, but I'd rather speak to you about DE&I and my commitment. And the best way I can describe it is that with a name like Katoyun, and with parents who had spoke broken English, and coming from a country that is actually hated by many in the US, I have seen hate firsthand, from being spat on, passed over, and watching my parents being told to go back to the country from which they came. Having had these experiences, I can tell you that I was the kid that if I saw a kid alone, they were not alone for long, just because they were different. I am committed to DE&I, not just in our profession, but in our society. And as a business lawyer, I can tell you that that needs to happen at the corporate level. I've spent hundreds of hours and probably thousands of hours working in this space, championing the cause, teaching about it, educating it, and actually helping to solve problems. I have sat at the hiring tables, making sure that diverse lawyers not only had the chance to be interviewed, but were hired. I had the privilege of working with Diversity Lab, a national organization that champions initiatives like the Mansfield Rule, and partnering on hackathons where we have come up with actual solutions to some of the DE&I matters, including pipeline, equity, and inclusion. I created the Diversity in the Boardroom Task Force at the American Bar Association 10 years ago, and I serve on many diversity organizations. As co-chair of the Women's Rights Committee, I have brought forth resolutions, including the most recent resolution on the Equality Act and the extension of the federal ERA. Growing up in Philadelphia, being a proud graduate of the Philadelphia public school system, I thrive in a diverse environment. I've devoted my pro bono service volunteering as an advocate for children, immigrants, and communities in need, including serving in countless roles at the Support Center for Child Advocates. In addition to these roles, I've led many boards of directors throughout the city, including the Committee of 70, to Maternity Care Coalition, to the School Mindfulness Project. I'm proud to say, currently in my job as the chair of the Corporate Governance and Securities Practice Group at Cozen O'Connor, that I don't just sit in these roles, I act in these roles, and I help to make things happen. Throughout my endeavors, I've demonstrated my ability to listen, to engage, empower others, build, create, and support initiatives, and champion the voice of others. I hope that the members give me the opportunity to do so as your Vice Chancellor.
All right, thank you both for that introduction. And Kathy, I apologize to you for mispronouncing your last name.
Never.
We're going to start with, we're going to do a 20-minute question and answer session. As I said before, you each will have 2 minutes to answer the questions. If you go over that 2 minutes, I will have to cut you off. Kathy, we're going to start with you, and this question is going to go to both of you. What does equity and inclusion mean to you?
Oh, what does equity and inclusion mean to me? Everyone, regardless of race, gender, ethnicity, sexual orientation, disability, any type of background, has the opportunity to do what they wish to do. If that means being an associate in a law firm, being a partner in a law firm, opening up their own practice, doing whatever they want in their professional career, that they have that chance, that the door is open, that not somebody else is determining that. Inclusion means once that door is open, making sure that that individual's voice is heard. I walk into a lot of boardrooms filled with one type of person, and then they add a person of diverse background. And I watch when that person does not have the opportunity to speak up, share their mind, and give their opinion. That is not inclusion. That is not even diversity. So equity is having the doors open, being able to pursue your dreams, being able to pursue the work you wish to pursue, and inclusion means being able to be heard, not having things done, for example, in the corporate world outside of the boardroom. Thank you, Riley.
Jen.
Thanks, Riley. And I will agree with my esteemed opponent as to the definitions. Equity is really equivalent to equality. And it's really making sure that everybody has a seat at the table, has the equal opportunity to be there and be present. Whereas inclusion is really bringing them in, taking their ideas and incorporating it into the organization's mission and action plan moving forward. And I'm so proud that I can say that in every organization that I've run, I've been a leader in that, in all three elements: diversity, equity, and inclusion. For instance, as the chancellor of the Brandeis Law Society, which is dedicated to the Jewish faith's beliefs and values, I was instrumental in ensuring that all of the affinity bars were included in the programming that the Brandeis Law Society undertook. We partnered throughout my chancellorship with the APAVA PA, with the barristers, and with all of the affinity bar associations. It was my idea to have an affinity bar food tasting event so that we could explore each other's cultures and communities, because I believe that in order to have a community and to have full inclusion, we have to have an understanding of each other's backgrounds. And so that was an effort to help aid in those efforts.
Okay, we're going to start with Jen on this question. And this is, again, unless I say otherwise, the question will be for both of you. How about that? So I don't have to keep saying that. Do you think the legal profession has a diversity problem?
Absolutely, 100%. I think we are doing better than we did when I started in my career, but we absolutely are not in any way there. We don't have enough diverse equity partners. We don't have enough women partners, and we don't have enough diversity in legal counsel's offices. Although I will say that in the corporate realm, I believe they're doing better than we are doing in the legal community. And I think that one of the things that we could do, and one of the things I would like to do, if given the honor of being elected to vice chancellor, is that I would like to take some of the lessons that we can learn from our corporate clients and partners and bring those into the legal field. I think initiatives, as Kathy mentioned, as the Diversity Lab, the Philadelphia Diversity Law Group, and the Mansfield Rule are things that we need to implement across the board in the legal profession. We need to be encouraging our member firms to participate in those programs so that we can increase diversity, equity, and inclusion. I look at my own firm, and we are working to have a diversity sensitivity training, because since I became partner several years ago, I have been working to ensure that, because there is an unbelievable lack of diversity across our profession. And it's only by talking about it and being cognizant of it and taking actual affirmative steps towards including diverse lawyers in our leadership positions that we can move forward.
Kathy.
There is no question that we have a lack of diversity in our practice as lawyers. There is so much work to be done. As Jennifer said, the numbers are abysmal when we talk about, whether we're talking about gender diversity, people of color diversity, sexual orientation diversity, disabilities, individuals with disabilities diversity. We have a lack of having all diverse individuals in our ranks. And what we're talking about here is at the law firm level, whether we're talking about partners, associates, or even in-house counsel. What we're talking about is, I do believe the city law groups do a much better job than the law firms do. I know that I've been working with decades with incredible chief diversity officers throughout this city. They do tremendous, excellent work at various law firms throughout our city in diversity initiatives to make sure, first and foremost, that we have diversity in the pipeline, the law students, and even before the law students, when I think of the programs that the Philadelphia Bar Association does in the public schools and in the cities to teach students about civics and law, that's where we can start. Then we need it in the law schools, and then we need to champion and keep diverse individuals in the law firms. I tell my colleagues over and over again, whether they be women, whether they be people of color, I beg them not to leave when they come into my office and say I'm leaving. And what I do is I sit with them to try to determine why and what we can do differently. So there is a problem, and we need to have strategic change.
Okay, the next question. Provide one reason why you think the Philadelphia Bar Association lacks diverse attorneys among its membership and leadership, and how will you address that? Kathy, we'll start with you.
Sure. Look, I think thanks to various programs that former chancellors such as Al Dandridge put forth with respect to diversity, the work that the various different sections have put forward and in trying to move forward with respect to diversity is admirable. I think, and what I understand, and I've had the privilege actually of speaking to many individuals of the affinity bars on where they think there might be a lacking of diversity at the Philadelphia Bar Association. And I think that's because there's not as much collaboration as we could have. I think we try very hard. I think there is an attempt at collaboration. I think we are lucky to have individuals such as Tara Phoenix help us bridge the gap, help us with our CLE programs and making sure that we have diverse panels. But I think so much more can be done actually with the affinity groups, with those listening in, the individuals in the groups listening in today. I think we should be planning programs together. I think we should be planning initiatives together. I think we should be planning our outreach to the law firms together. I think there can be work that can be done, for example, on even our fees. And how can we work with respect to our fees that we have to pay to be a Philadelphia Bar member and then to be an affinity bar member? And how can we find synergies and collaborations even with respect to that matter? I think the more that we can work actually hand in hand with the affinity bars, the better we can do with respect to having diversity within the leadership ranks throughout the Bar Association.
Jen.
Thanks, Riley. So I think, and I've been championing this since I was vice chancellor of the Brandeis Law Society, which is about 6 years ago. I think one of the ways we increase diversity within the association's membership is by offering a menu of options to our members, that you can get a discount. If you want to be a member of the barristers and a PABA PA and HBA and the Bar Association, you get a discount, and you get an increased discount depending on how many associations you join. I think that's a significant step forward that we could do to increase our diversity within our organization. And somebody mentioned earlier about reaching out to school-age children. And I think it's important that we reach out to the high school kids, but I really think that it's critical that we expand programs like our Goldilocks trials the YLD does, and our Lawyer in the Classroom and Lawyer for a Day that our YLD does during Law Week. But there was a program that existed a number of years ago, several decades ago, as I understand it, called the Law Explorers Outpost. And it was dedicated to young children, school-age kids. It was giving them exposure to the legal community so that they would develop an interest. And I think that's where we need to start. If we want to develop diverse lawyers, we need to incite in them the interest and the belief in themselves that they can achieve that at a very early age. I have a 7 and 11-year-old boys, and I can tell you that I tell them every day they can do whatever they want to do. And I know that not everybody gets those opportunities. Not everybody has somebody behind them encouraging them. But by having a program like the Law Explorers Outpost and expanding it to the Boys and Girls Clubs and community centers across the city, we can help increase the diversity in our profession, which then increases the diversity in our organization.
Thank you both. Next question. Over the past 2 years, there has been a heightened spotlight on racial equity and inclusion. Many companies have created diversity initiatives and hired DEI officers. Organizations that were often silent during national controversies now regularly issue statements condemning acts of racial violence. Has diversity, equity, and inclusion been reduced to a buzzword or trend? We'll start with you, Jen.
Sure. I think in some respects it has been, but I really think that anytime you can talk about it, it's critically important to do so. If we're silent, then we risk taking steps backwards. So I think it's important to talk about it, but I also think it's important to do things about it. When I served as Chancellor of Brandeis Law Society, we constantly took positions and took statements when we saw that there were injustices to any of our friends in any of the diverse communities across the city. And I was so pleased and really felt very uplifted when my friend Tiana Kalogerakis, who was president of the barristers at the time, reached out to me when there was a shooting in the synagogue in Pittsburgh just 3 years ago. Speaking out together and making our voices heard collectively is how we can move. I have a history of doing that in my leadership roles. And I think that it's incumbent upon us to continue to do that. But as I said, we need to have action as well. But in order to know what action to take, we need to speak to each other. We need to have the difficult and uncomfortable conversations. We need to know what we don't know and understand the communities that we serve. We need to make sure that we understand where each other are coming from so that we can speak collectively and move forward together. I have a history of doing that, and I think that is how we can move forward.
Kathy.
Riley, I love this question because that's been my fear. My fear is that DE&I is a buzzword. And if it becomes a buzzword, then there's no meaning behind it. I do believe that there is a chance that it is not a buzzword because I think Jen spoke to this, right? There is action behind it. And I can give examples of the actions that we're seeing behind it and the things that I'm doing to help promote those actions behind it. It is very true. We all came out with statements. Corporations came out with statements. Law firms came out with statements. I was proud that my firm came out with a statement right away after the murder of George Floyd last year. That's not enough. We have to move into action. And what that means by moving into action is putting in place those foundations, those programs, those initiatives that will be sure to lift people up and make sure that the dialogue doesn't end. So for example, I actually just put together a program last week with the ACC, the Association of Corporate Counsels. And my two speakers were in-house counsel with Bentley Corporation and in-house counsel with Clearway Energy, Inc. And they spoke about their programs at their companies, Epic and IDEA. And those are programs that are championing and providing and moving forward the diversity, equity, and inclusion conversation. They provide resources groups, they provide avenues to making sure that there's pay equity, and they provide opportunities for inclusion. I have an Inside Scoop Spotlight program where I do interviews and speak with people in DE&I nationally, one of which was with the CEO of the Geraldine Dodge Foundation, who is changing that foundation in New Jersey and taking money and feeding it into and for racial justice causes. So it started as a buzz, maybe, but we need to continue to turn that buzz into pure action. And I believe we can support that at the Philadelphia Bar Association.
Thank you. Next question. Do you incorporate equity into your work at your firm? And you're both at firms. And if so, how? We will start with you, Kathy.
You probably saw my huge smile. I do. I think about it every day. Here's the examples. First and foremost, I'm a partner in a law firm. I have the ability to give credit. And I will tell you, when I started as a junior partner in a law firm and I gave credit to associates for work that came in the door, I was actually told as a junior partner, you're making a mistake. And I stood by and I said, that is not a mistake to support our young lawyers and especially to support our diverse lawyers. Let us in the room. Let us make sure that we have access to the clients, to the work, and let's be blunt, to the compensation. Credit provides access to the compensation. So one way that I do is I share and or give credit. I also, in my work, I think I already mentioned it, I sit at the hiring tables. I am in a position of actually being the first line of hiring for my practice group. And I not only say diversity is imperative, I require it. I require it in all hiring decisions. I require it in all interviews, and I require it in the work that we do. I actually, when we are giving the work out, when we are getting help on our projects, I make sure that our teams are diverse. But let's be clear, we need to make sure that we have the individuals in the law firm who are diverse. And that's why I'm glad Jen and I and everybody speaks about the pipeline. The law students, you know, a lot of times I'm a partner in a firm. A lot of partners don't talk about what's so great about being a partner. Let's talk about it. Let's engage with people and let's lift them up and bring them along.
Jen.
Thanks, Riley. So yes, I actively seek to bring equity, inclusion, diversity into my firm at every opportunity I get. I'm always looking for diverse attorneys to hire. I'm looking to promote diverse attorneys. And I am constantly looking to promote diverse attorneys, both inside my firm and without. One of the ideas I have, if I'm elected to chancellor, is a secondment fair. And I think that that's important to increase diversity, because I think if we have a secondment fair where we invite general counsels to come in and to interview and to really spotlight diverse associates within the large firms in our legal community, so that they have the opportunity to be spotlighted and so that they can get those jobs with in-house counsels, they can then advance their careers, because then they become more attractive to advance within their own firms. I'm constantly seeking out diverse attorneys to promote within the association as well. You can ask a number of the attorneys, the candidates who are here today who are diverse, if I had a role in their seeking the position that they're currently seeking, and I will assure you that they will tell you that I did, because I look for diversity in all aspects of my life, of my career, within my firm and outside of the firm. It is a commitment that I have. It is a commitment that I've always had. And it is a commitment that I will continue within my bar leadership as Vice Chancellor and Chancellor.
Thank you both. This is going to be the final question, and I will let you know that I did have questions, the general questions about, you know, what do you plan to do as Vice Chancellor to promote DEI, or what have you done in the field of DEI before taking this or seeking this position? But I feel like you've answered those as you've spoken to them. So I'm gonna put that aside. I'm gonna ask you a different question. How do you plan to communicate with bar members and receive feedback from the bar members about their DEI needs and or initiatives? So we will start with you, Jen.
Thanks, Riley. So I'm so glad you asked that question, because the one idea that I have, which is the biggest, the biggest idea that I have, is that I really want to have a large scale diversity summit. And I want to have that summit within the first month of my chancellorship. And that summit, some of you may remember that Chancellor Rudy Garcia had a summit of that caliber during his chancellorship. And I want to do something very similar, where we bring in national speakers to talk about diversity, not only why it's important, but how we can move it forward. But more importantly than the speakers that I want to bring in, I want us to have breakout sessions where we can have an open dialogue about what we need and what we can do to move diversity, equity, inclusion forward. I want to have breakout sessions by practice area and by types of practice, so that we can come up with practical solutions, concrete ideas that we will then work to implement moving forward. It's going to be a huge undertaking, but as I said in the outset, diversity is an investment. We have to invest in diversity in order to move it forward. And I really think that having a huge summit at the start of my term would set the stage to know, so that members know that diversity, equity, inclusion is a primary focus of my chancellorship. My door and email inbox would always be open to hear members' ideas and thoughts and critiques as to how we can move diversity and inclusion forward, because that is what we need. We need a lot of seats at the table. And by having a huge program at the start of my chancellorship, that would set the table so that we could implement the ideas throughout the rest of my term.
Kathy.
Hi, Riley. Thank you for that question. So I've already started doing what I wanted to do, and that is really talking to our members already, and talking to the chairs and the leaders of the affinity bars, and talking to the members of the affinity bars. I think we have the great ideas here. I think we have the people who have the ideas, know how to come up with the solutions, but we need to support each other in doing that. I think I love Jen's summit idea. I think the way to go is setting up a council, making sure there's a council act. I think what the Bar Association has, we do have these diversity representatives, which is fabulous. We have each committee and section working towards this topic and this area and this need, which is fabulous, but we need something at the top levels. We need something at the Board of Governors in the form of a council. And we have the individuals listening to this forum today who have solutions, who have great ideas. I took them all down. You know who you are. I've had conversations with you, and I want to help implement your ideas. I think we know what will work in Philadelphia, and I think it needs to be about Philadelphia, and it needs to be about the Philadelphia community. And so that's what I would do, is continue to listen and then find the platforms and the ways to be heard, which is what I do. I have a track record of listening and making people's ideas come to fruition. I'm glad Jen talked about the Explorers program, because I actually was in the Explorers program as a young person. And I remember, if you're a diverse person or you come from an immigrant family, being a lawyer seems unfathomable. My parents just looked at me and said, I don't know what that means. And the Philadelphia Bar Association and other organizations gave me the space and the platform to grow into that. And I watched people like Audrey Talley, the chair of the business law section, and then a chancellor take on those roles. And to see a woman and a woman of color do that made a difference.
Okay, we are at the point now where I'm going to ask for your closing statements. The closing statement is just 1 minute long, and we're going to go in alphabetical order. So that means Jen, you are first.
Thanks, Riley. And thanks again, everyone, for your attention and for giving us the opportunity to talk about these important topics today. One of the reasons I love the Bar Association so much is that we share a core value: our unwavering commitment to advancing DEI initiatives. Our association has done so much to advance diversity in our organization, in our profession, and in the community at large. However, as we've discussed, there's so much more to be done. If I'm privileged to serve as the association's 97th chancellor, DEI will be one of the first projects to which I devote my attention, as I said, and I pledge to keep it in the forefront of the association's work throughout my year as chancellor and beyond. I am honored to be here today. Thank you again for your time and attention, and I humbly ask for your support.
Kathy.
Thank you, Riley. Thank you so much for this forum and the thoughtful questions. The association, I believe, has reacted quickly to focus on many acute challenges in our profession, from the effects of the pandemic to access to justice, to the critical needs to address systemic racism and the justified calls for racial justice and equity. I have the depth of experience and the leadership skills to confront these challenges head on and meet the calls to action. As a corporate governance lawyer and business advisor, I have the experience to further the mission of the association and advocate for all of its members. It would be an honor and a privilege to have the opportunity to continue my call to public service by representing the voices of the Philadelphia Bar Association members and supporting advancements in our profession and our legal and judicial systems. I welcome all of your thoughts as we build a dynamic association built on a diversity of voices and a call to action. And I humbly ask for your support. Thank you.
I want to thank Jen and Kathy for being here and providing the audience with some insight on their candidacy. Thank you both. You may now turn off your cameras because I'm going to invite the candidates for the YLD Executive Council or Executive Committee, to turn their cameras on. We're going to hear from each one. There are, from what I understand, there may be two that aren't here, but we're going to have some of the candidates actually speak for them by way of proxy. Each candidate will be given 2 minutes to introduce themselves, state why they're running for the Executive Committee of the YLD, and to name one tangible way the Young Lawyers Division can work to increase the presence of diverse young lawyers in the Bar Association as both members and leaders. And we are going to go in alphabetical order. And we're going to start with Joyce Adelugba. And I'm sorry if I mispronounce any names here. So please introduce yourself and tell us why you're running and answer the question, please. Joyce.
Hi, my name is Shahira Brown. I go by Joyce. I'm running for executive board of the YLD because I just want to say thank you actually for the opportunity to be able to speak today. And diversity and inclusion is something that's very important to me and close to my heart. As the child of Nigerian immigrants, I have always been a bit of a diverse aspect. Growing up in New York City, I was the only Nigerian kid in my school, and it was up to me to be able to bring, information about my culture into school and also be a cultural conduit to take what I knew about American society back home. So I think one way I can help with diversity and inclusion within the YLD is to, one, embrace people where they are, embrace their different backgrounds, embrace everybody where they are and bring them together. So with the YLD, I think something that's very significant to me is to be able to work with the group. And that's why I'm working with the slate with Kirsty, Jacqueline, Sarah, and Antima. And with all of us together, we believe that we'll be able to share our love for diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Next, we have Shahira Brown.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Shahira Brown. I am a Philadelphia native. I was born and raised here in Philadelphia. I spent most of my legal career thus far serving the Philadelphia community. I started at the Public Defender's Office. I've been there for about 4 years, and I'm currently at the School District of Philadelphia as an Assistant General Counsel in the Education Unit. I have a passion for community outreach and community service. I feel like joining a YLD Executive Committee will allow me to continue to further those community outreach efforts and passion. I feel like my passion does align with YLD's mission and goals in serving the legal profession as well as the Philadelphia community. I believe one tangible way YLD can increase the presence of diverse young lawyers in the Bar Association as both members and leadership is by revamping outreach efforts in the YLD section, which includes incentive for participation. I would say, for one example, I participated in a barbershop talk with the Public Defender's Office where we did an expungement clinic, but we also was able to talk about Know Your Rights, do you know your rights seminars. I feel like if the Young Lawyers Division will allow these programs to be spearheaded by the young lawyers and as a way of getting their participation and joining, they receive some type of incentive, whether that's membership discount or those community efforts turning into CLE credits in some way, shape, or form, or I think I said maybe community recognition. So I believe revamping outreach efforts, including positive incentive, is one way that YLD can increase the presence of diverse young lawyers as both members and leaders. Thank you.
Next up is Antima Chakraborty.
Hello, Good evening, everyone. Antima Chakraborty. I am very pleased to be running. I started off in my career at the district attorney's office, and Mike Stackow was actually my boss, where I was in the sexual assault unit, doing specifically assigned to a courtroom where we had our defendants were adults, and all our victims were victims of child sexual abuse. That's something that I felt very passionately about. Currently, I'm working as a plaintiff's attorney at the law office of Jared S. Safran. I've been a plaintiff's attorney since 2018. In 2020, I was nominated and selected as a top 40 under 40. Accolades don't really mean much, I know that, but it was nice to be recognized for the effort and belief that I am passionate about my profession. I am running for one main reason, and I'll give a quick story as to why. I had a young female attorney who is of Indian descent. She just passed the bar exam, just moved to Philadelphia, did not know who to reach out to, how to find someone to connect with. And she actually found me through social media, not through any of the Bar Association resources. And I became her point person. So any issue that she had, for example, I am not only the only person of color who is an attorney at my office, but also the only woman attorney at my office. So to have someone in the same position be able to reach out to me to ask what she felt were the dumb questions, I think made a big difference. I was somebody that I did not have when I was in her position. So I am specifically running to be a part of women who are also running together, to be a resources for other young attorneys to be able to come to be comfortable to come to. In the Philadelphia community, I'm not just a lawyer, I'm part of the Asian Arts Initiative, doing dance forums and bringing Indian culture to the community. And that's why I want to do a micro outreach to attorneys and a macro outreach to the community.
Next is Nakia Clark.
Hello, everyone. So my name is Nakia Clark, and a quick background on me. I am a Philadelphia native. I grew up in Southwest Philadelphia. I attended LaSalle University and Rutgers Law School, and currently I work at the City of Philadelphia Law Department in the Code and Public Nuisance Litigation Unit. And I also serve as the corresponding secretary for the Women's Lawyers Division, Philadelphia chapter. And so I have 4 goals that I look forward to, and if I am elected on the YLD Executive Committee. And the first being wellness, mental well-being for attorneys and law students. The second goal being mentorship, and a specific focus on mentorship for attorneys who are first generation and diverse attorneys who have overcome some unique barriers just to become an attorney. The third being community outreach within different areas in the city of Philadelphia. And lastly, reducing some of the barriers that attorneys and law students face in entering this legal profession. And so to answer the prompt about how we can include more diverse attorneys in the Philadelphia Bar Association as a whole, I think that we have to kind of look at the law student membership and kind of revamp that. So currently we have a sponsorship level where attorneys can pay a nominal fee and sponsor a law student. But I think that if we offered or opened it up to first year law students being members of the Philadelphia Bar Association, being able to receive those email blasts about events, networking opportunities, different things like that, then it will encourage them to want to maintain that membership. They get a front row seat as to what the Philadelphia Bar Association offers. And then if we want to continue to look at sponsorship levels, that's a way for those first year law students to be able to network and go to those events and things like that to cultivate and develop those relationships. So thank you guys for taking the time out to do this panel. And I also just want to shout out my slate, which includes Shahira Brown, Caroline Curley, and Samantha Fitzpatrick.
Next up on our list, the candidate is Caroline Curley. She is not here, and my understanding is that Shahira Brown is going to speak on her behalf.
That is correct. So I do have her statement in front of me that I'm going to read. Caroline has been an attorney in Philadelphia for the past 5 years after graduating from Boston Law School. The entirety of her career was dedicated to government service, working as an attorney for the city of Philadelphia, first in the law department's child welfare unit, and now in the code and public nuisance litigation unit. She has gained firsthand knowledge of the city's areas of the highest needs. Her hope is to bring this knowledge to the YLD to encourage and promote public interest opportunities to our younger members. these experiences does not only provide critical service to fellow Philadelphians, they also are invaluable learning and confidence building opportunities for all attorneys. To answer the prompt question, to increase diverse membership in the Philadelphia Bar, Caroline is a advocate of reevaluating the membership fee structure for public service and government attorneys. These attorneys already provide valuable services to the city's public and talented, diverse, and hardworking segment of the legal community that unfortunately is largely due to calls to become more involved with the bar. My goal would be, or Caroline's goal would be, to change membership fees to alleviate the burden of becoming involved. Thank you for your time, and please vote for her and the members of our slate as well. Thank you.
Next up is Kirsty Degroot.
Good evening. I want to thank the Philadelphia Bar Association and the Diversity and the Profession Committee for having me here, as well as everyone in attendance tonight. My name is Kirsty Degroot, and I'm running for the Executive Committee of the Young Lawyers Division. As you've heard this evening, I'm slated to run with my peers, Isabel Nivera Lopez, Ulatula Joyce Adelugba, Antima Chakraborty, Jacqueline Dicolo, who's not here this evening, and Sarah Robinson. I'm running for this position because I believe that exposure to a diverse community of young lawyers is a crucial component in the development of not only the young lawyer, but for the bar as a whole. And I can speak to this myself. Though I grew up in Philadelphia, I spent almost a decade in the South for undergrad, then law school, then a clerkship. When I moved back to Philadelphia, I was a brand new lawyer with no law school connections and no practice experience at a small firm, Bucchetto & Lentz, where I currently am and have been a civil litigator for over 3 years. Now, my colleagues are wonderful, make no mistake, but they are all men, and they were all practicing for almost a decade when I got here. I lacked a community of lawyers in my own demographic. Forming a community of peers in the legal field to whom I could relate on a personal level and to whom I could turn to for personal advice was crucial to the development of every aspect of my practice. My tangible plan, as much as I can state in the 2 minutes I've been allotted tonight, is to increase the presence of diverse young lawyers in a simple way: exposure through engagement. I've heard this theme touched on several times tonight, but I plan to take an aggressive, hands-on, from the ground up approach in connecting new members early on in their careers by using concrete procedures my slate is already discussing. In doing so, I hope that young lawyers will be exposed to members of their own demographics, which I have done through the Bar Association, and that having a community of peers will encourage young, diverse lawyers to not only join, but to lead the diverse lawyers of tomorrow. Thank you for your time today.
The next candidate is Jacqueline Dicolo. She is not here, and I understand, Kirsty, that you're going to speak on her behalf.
I am. Thank you very much. Jacqueline Dicolo, who goes by Jackie, is a lawyer at Sweeney & Sheehan, PC, and a graduate of Drexel University Thomas Klein School of Law. She's been involved in the Pennsylvania Bar Association, the Philadelphia Bar Association, the New Jersey State Bar Association, the Camden Bar Association, the Justinian Society of Greater Philadelphia, the South Jersey Claims Association, the Philadelphia Law Conference, the Drexel Klein Inn of Court, the University of Delaware Alumni Club Ambassador, and the Philadelphia Area Disc Alliance. And her statement is as follows: I think that the Bar Association provides great opportunities for young lawyers to connect with a network, grow in their careers, and give back to the community. I hope to help communicate to young attorneys all that the Bar Association has to offer, find ways to better engage young and diverse attorneys, and build a community that supports young attorneys in all the ways that they will need. Thank you very much.
The next candidate is Samantha J Fitzpatrick.
Thank you, Riley. Good evening, everyone. My name is Samantha Fitzpatrick. Many of you are familiar with me personally, and to those who are not, I am a Detroit native. I actually moved here to Philadelphia following in the footsteps of my brother Thomas, who's also a lawyer here in the city. As a first-generation law student, as a first-generation college student, I had the benefit of an older brother who had done it, who could coach me through it, who could tell me how the ropes run. But we understand that everyone doesn't have that luxury, which is why our slate largely agrees that the incorporation of diversity in the YLD, in the Philly Bar, in the profession as a whole is essential. And the only way that we're able to facilitate that is by grabbing those law students as they are coming in. So in my view, the best way for us to encourage diversity, both in the membership and in the leadership of the Bar Association, is to do what we can to work with our current law school liaisons to make sure that we are supporting those affinity organizations at the law schools, and then to encourage cross-pollination of affinity bar organizations as they exist currently. We as lawyers, oh, I'm a member of the Barristers Association. Okay, well, do you know what's going on with the Justinian Society? Do you know what's going on with the Brandeis Society? So having that access and cross-pollinating is going to be absolutely essential to encouraging involvement and participation of diverse attorneys here in the profession, in the YLD, and grabbing them in law school as students is the best way to do so. Thank you.
Our next candidate is Isabel C. Nivera Lopez.
Yes, thank you, Riley. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you all. A special thank you to the Diversity in the Profession Committee for sponsoring this wonderful event. My name is Isabel Lopez, and I'm running for the YLD Executive Committee. For this election, I'm slated with my colleagues Kirsty Degroot, Jacqueline Dicolo, Lutula Joyce Adelugba, Sarah Robinson, and Antima Chakraborty. A little background about myself. I was born and raised in San Juan, Puerto Rico, and I first came to Philadelphia in 2012. I went to Villanova University for both undergrad and law school. I clerked in the U.S. District Court for the District of New Jersey for now retired Magistrate Judge Snyder. I'm currently an associate at Hangley, Aronchik, Siegel, Pudlin, and Schiller, and I have been involved with the YLD since last year when I became the liaison for the Hispanic Bar Association of Pennsylvania. I'm running for the YLD Executive Committee because I want to make a meaningful impact on young lawyers and the legal profession as a whole, and I recognize and have experienced firsthand the professional and personal benefits that come from being involved in the Bar Association. If elected, one of my goals is to encourage all young lawyers, with an emphasis on diverse young lawyers, to become active members and leaders of the Bar Association. In my opinion, the YLD can increase the presence of diverse young lawyers in the Bar Association by getting involved and collaborating with the various affinity bar associations and local law school groups. I believe young, diverse lawyers are more likely to join the Bar Association as members and leaders if they are given the opportunity to work with and meet the young lawyers who are also involved in the YLD. I look forward to hopefully being able to assist the YLD in these efforts. Thank you.
Our final candidate is Sarah Robinson.
Thank you. Thank you to the Diversity in the Profession Committee and the Bar Association staff for hosting this event. And thank you to those in attendance for giving us your time. I am Sarah Robinson. I am a staff attorney at Philadelphia Legal Assistance, where I represent crime victims in family law matters. Prior to joining PLA, I worked for the CSE Institute at Villanova Law School, where I also attended. And in my role there, I had the privilege of being cross-sworn, so to speak, as an assistant public defender for the Defender Association, where I staffed the municipal court's prostitution diversion program, Project Dawn Court. I decided to run for a position on the YLD Executive Committee because I felt that it was time for me to give back to this organization in a meaningful way. Ever since I was a law student, the Bar Association has positively contributed to my professional development. The brown bag lunches in the summertime hold a particular place in my heart. I feel that I am in a place in my career now where I have the confidence, the network, and the practice experience to serve the PBA and young lawyers in particular as their elected leader. As you heard, I am running on a slate with Joyce, Kirsty, Antima, Jackie, and Isabel, and DEI is a priority of our collective agenda. Strategic programming is one way that the YLD can increase DEI in the YLD and the Bar Association. Personally, if elected, I would aspire to spearhead our programming initiatives, where I would invite affinity groups of the PBA and local law schools, as well as other organizations in the broader community to speak to our membership. I believe our programs would increase engagement from our membership, bring awareness to the wealth of diversity in our city, and encourage members to view different identities as valuable insights. In addition, I hope that our programs would inspire a young lawyer to volunteer for a social justice program, pursue a new practice area, or cultivate a new client base. Thank you.
I want to thank all the candidates for the YLD Executive Committee for being here and letting the audience know a little bit more about your candidacy. And before I turn it over to Judge Snyder, I also want to thank the Bar Association for giving me the privilege of moderating this election forum. I think it went spectacularly, and not due to me at all, but because of the candidates that were here. And I want to thank those behind the scenes that made this happen. So Judge Snyder, I will turn it over to you for closing remarks.
Thank you, Riley. And the first words out of my mouth are to disagree with you. You did an amazing job. And the success of the program really was due to your efforts and to your ability to successfully engage everyone and to successfully coax interesting answers. I wanted to thank everyone who's listened to the program today. Your engagement is what makes the association strong. I want to thank every one of the candidates. Having listened to all of you, I am confident of two things. Number one, each of you would make superlative leaders in the association. And number two, that each of you have a concrete commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. These are values that we have steadily advocated over the years. I am pleased to see a group of so many women and men who I think can lead us forward in the role of creating a truly diverse bar, a bar that is equitable to all, and a bar where inclusion is the rule, not the exception. I want to thank Alicia Rodriguez and the other members of the Diversity in the Profession Committee for their thoughtful questions that they provided for Riley to present today. I want to finally thank the staff of the association, Tracy McCloskey and Andrea Morris Tracy and Tara Phoenix and Charlie Klitsch and Harvey Hurdle and everyone else for the way that they have supported both myself during my time as chancellor and the way that they have supported everyone running now. So in closing, there will be one more forum that will be on November 16th. That will occur at noon. And in that forum, I will have the privilege of moderating the forum itself. And then following that, a few days thereafter, everyone will receive their ballots in email to be able to vote and to be able to vote for those individuals that you believe will represent the association in the best way. I'm confident that you will have a difficult choice because everyone is really wonderful. Again, thank you. I look forward to seeing you on November 16th, hopefully without the black and blue jaw occasioned by my recent dental surgery. Bye-bye now.